This is a video tutorial on leave administration. So in this example, we are going to have two scenarios. We are going to create leave transactions for a scenario which has escalation levels and another one that is optional or um, approved by either administrator or uh, manager. So we'll start by we'll log into the system using the administrator profile with full rights. Then we will first set up all our leave definitions. So I'm going to start with scenario A. We are going to set up the definitions for scenario A. So the first thing we will do is we'll go about setting up the leave definitions. So if we go to our HR definitions, we've got leave definitions. So you can see the system comes predefined with different types of leave, annual and other types of leave. So we are going to use this particular leave for scenario A, annual leave management. For scenario A is for managers and scenario B will be for non-management staff. So we can start with the management staff. We just go about defining this annual leave type by clicking on the action button there. So we can either mark it if it's inclusive of Saturdays, Sundays or holidays. So we'll just include those. It's an annual leave. There are two types of leave. It's either an annual or another leave. So we've given it a name, annual leave taken by management staff. So upon leave approval, the system can either automatically send the leave pay or the leave payment to the transactions, or it can be done on a different level. So you have that option. So for scenario A, we are going to use automatically calculate the leave pay once the leave is approved. So you can see here we have the different earnings and deductions in the system. So we have to attach a payment parameter for what we are going to send to the payroll or to the pay slips, which will assign the leave pay. So in this case, we have defined leave allowance. We'll just pick this leave allowance, although you can define, we will go through defining that, but we can pick that as the parameter to use to pay the leave. We can also select the parameter basis. So of course the leave pay is calculated based on the basic pay. So we can put that. We can put the entitled days per year. So this particular leave pay for managers is for 25 days in a year. Then we also have the option of putting in a lump sum in case the leave has a fixed amount, as opposed to being tied to the payroll parameter. So in this scenario, we do not need a lump sum, so we'll put 0. Activation days just simply means when the lump sum or the payment can be marked as a valid lump sum. So we are not going to use it first for this particular scenario. We are going to use it in the next scenario. So we just put that as 0. So we save that definition. So our leave days is 25 days. It includes Saturdays, it includes Sundays, it includes holidays. So we now can, once we define that, we now proceed to define the leave workflows. So this particular leave is approved by the HR manager, and then it escalates to the managing director. So let's go about defining that workflow here. Okay, so we select the leave on the side navigation tab here. We select our leave workflows, and you can see we have our flow here. So in our leave workflow, we define for our leave, we want all our leaves reminders to be sent to the administrator. That is for escalation. The reminder time span when applications are received, we can set that to 3 days. Escalation limit, this should be set to, this basically is if no action is taken, then it will escalate the leave to the next level of authorization. So the time limit for that is 5 days. We just use that as our default settings. Then there's a reminder notification text. We can also set that here. Then under our notifications flow, we will send notifications to system admins. Those are the people approving the leave. We can send the notifications via email as well. Then we have, you can customize the notification messages. So as you can see, we have some custom text there, which we can include into the mails or the notifications. Then we can add our leave administrators. So for scenario A, we have 2 users. We have the HR admin, or rather the HR manager, and we have the managing director. So in this scenario, we are just going to use the default system users who have been assigned the respective rights equally. So if we click on our add button here, you can see we have administrator and demo. So we'll assume the demo user is the HR manager, and we will give them optional approval rights. So basically what this means is, by having an optional approval setting, once they approve a leave, it is escalated. So they come first in the order of escalation. So we put them as the first level of approval, and we save. So if we go to our tabs here, we can see that this particular user is the first user to receive the application and to take action. So we can add a second user. So this is the next escalation level. So once it is approved by the HR manager, for instance, it is escalated to the managing director. So in this case, we have to give a mandatory approval. That means the leave cannot be at any point on the workflow approved without the managing director's approval. So we make sure that the mandatory option is selected. We are assuming in this case administrator is our managing director. He is on the second level, escalation level, so we put the second level there and we save. So that's basically how we would go about defining the workflow for our leave applications. So once we have defined the workflows, then we'll just go about defining, we'll just verify that the leave parameter has been defined in the system, and we just have a look at it, and then we will now log in as a member of staff and send a leave application. So we now go to our payroll definitions, because the system is going to be sending this transaction to the payroll upon approval. We will select our payroll parameters, and we can define or have a look at the leave parameter that the leave module is going to use from the payroll. So if you can remember, we selected this parameter. We'll just review it. So it's an earning and it is taxable, and we have all these parameters here. In case you want to integrate it with your accounting system, we have the GL code provision here, which you can put for your general ledger interface. So for now, the definition of the leave is looks okay. We will just remove this and say leave allowance paid. So we can just edit that to leave allowance. It's an earning. You have various types here: lump sums, deductions, loan, savings. So it's an earning. So we can save that. Now once we have done that, then now we can first we'll just have a look at the employees that are in the system. So let's look. We have 31 demo employees in this particular system. So you can see they are all here. So we are going to simulate. I'll pick an employee at random. So we'll pick Simon. We are going to log in to the self-service portal as Simon and apply for leave. So we will assume Simon would like to take 20 days leave. You can see our payroll period here is July 2020. So Simon would like to take a leave from 1st of July to 20th of July. So we are going to simulate how he can apply for leave on the system, and how the HR manager and the managing director can approve the leave. So let's just move over here to our self-service portal. Now we are going to log in as number 60. We already have the username and password stored on the browser. In any case, these are usually sent to the users as login credentials upon creation of the system. So we'll log in as user number 60, if you can remember, was Simon. So this is Simon's dashboard on the self-service portal. He has various functions. So we have various functions we can perform here. We are going to focus on leave. You can see you can request for salary advance and loan through similar processes, but for this particular video we'll focus on leave. So we can request for leave. Now as you can see, the system will pick the number of days that we defined. So annual leave for management staff, Simon is in the management staff, is assigned 25 days. So as he is applying here, he can clearly see the number of days he's entitled to. Should there be any days he's brought forward, they will be indicated. If he has taken any days, they'll also be indicated. Then it will show him the limit to the number of days he can actually apply in this application. So he cannot exceed 25 days. So we are going to simulate this and see how this works. So we select annual leave for the management. You can see he only has annual leave for management because he's in management. Now we said he wants to go from 1st to 20th. Okay, now just to test this, I can select a boundary that is in excess of what is entitled to. We can say this is annual leave. His away contacts, can put them. Now acting officer, someone who is going to cover for Simon while he's away, we can select Peter. and submit the application. So as you can see, the system validates your entitled days, so we have to remain within our limits of entitled days. So in this case, the system prompts Simon to enter the correct information. So Simon, as we said, he would like to take a leave for 20 days starting July. So we'll select 1st of July, we'll select 20th of July, and we shall send the application. So as you can see, the application is sent both to the managing director and to the HR manager with their escalation levels. So we are just going to log out and log in as the HR manager to review the application. So as you can see from our dashboard here, we have a new notification from Simon notifying us that we have received a leave application. So we can just click on the application and it brings us the details of the application. So we can opt to take action on this leave. But before I take action, I also would like just to show you what the managing director receives on his end. So we'll just go back, we'll log out, we will log in as the managing director. You can see he also has the same notification. He's been notified that there is a leave application that has come, but as you can see, the take action option is not there because the request has not reached his escalation level. So you can see the system notifies you that there is a leave application, but it is still being reviewed in the HR department. So we'll just log out and go back to the HR manager's profile. So we'll go back to review the leave. So we'll take action, we've reviewed the leave. Should there be any adjustments we need to make on the leave, we can. If there's any remarks that we would like to state in the leave, we can. So we can say, for instance, surrender main entrance or main office keys until date until return. So we can add some custom remarks and approve the leave. So once we approve the leave, we now escalate it to the managing director, who is now going to take action. So we approve the leave and we get a confirmation. So you can see we have approved the leave and we are now notified by the system that it is still pending. It has not yet been approved. It is still pending, awaiting action from our managing director. So we now can log in as the managing director. You can see we still have the leave request as pending. Now we have the take action button active, so we now can take action on that leave and we can approve the leave. So once we approve the leave, we now can go back to our portal here, refresh the page, and you can see that Simon has received 2 notifications that the HR manager has approved the leave. Let's just review the message. So the leave has been approved by the HR manager. However, there is still another administrator to review. That is the first notification. The second notification now tells us that the leave has been fully administered and the application was successful. So once they receive that, then they can be able to review their leave. As you can see, on the active leave, they have their leave, uh, approved leave, which they can even produce reports on that. But they are now able to see their leave history. So we can also review that from the system. Once the leave has been successfully reviewed or approved, we can review the members of staff that are on leave. So let's have a look at our active leave. So we can see that the leave is active because we selected an overlapping period. Since you're already in July and it ends tomorrow, you can see it notifies you, or it gives you a progress of the current leave status. So it tells you that he has one more day and is due to return on Monday 20th. So that is how we would go about administering leave. So let's just process and have a look at what we get on Simon's payslip. So if we look at the payslip, since we sent the transaction automatically from the leave approval process, we'll be able to evaluate and see that Simon's payslip has already been effected with the necessary adjustments. So you can see, based on our definition, for 20 days at their daily rate for this particular salary would come to that amount. So we can see that this has already been calculated automatically from the system. Same for Simon. If he comes to his portal and opens his July salary, sorry, our session has expired. So if he opens his July payslip, we can be able to see the same. He can print out the same report. As you can see, we have administered leave for that particular period. So now that we have done the scenario A, where it is the leave pay is auto calculated and escalated between the HR manager and the director, we are going to now do scenario B, where either the HR manager or the CEO can approve it depending on who comes first or depending on the organization's policy. Then we are going to have this one set manually, whereby the entries are done as well on the payroll and approved by the chairman or the CEO. So there are some scenarios whereby once leave is approved, the payroll department can generate the transactions for leave, and they need secondary approval by the managing director or the CEO. So that's another scenario which we are going to now replicate. So in this, the first one, the escalation levels were on the leave workflows. In scenario B, the escalation levels are on processing the leave payments. So let us simulate that and see how to go about that. So we are at the login for the administrator login. So we are just going to define the workflow for scenario B once again. So we log in. Since we already defined the leaves, we do not necessarily have to, let's just we can verify, but since we already defined the leave, we don't need to edit that. Maybe we can pick another leave. So that was for the management leave. So maybe now we can try the non-management leave, whereby we can say it is an annual leave, but it is not automatically sent to the transaction, so we don't need to define the rest of these parameters below here. So we can leave that as it is. Then we can go to our workflows and create the workflows. So again, the reminders, we have the same standard default texts. Then on our leave administration, we can add the managing director and say, give them, since either it is either one to approve, we can give them optional approval rights there. So we can say this is the first layer, there's only one layer of escalation, so we can add the HR manager as well and give them optional approval rights. Again, it is the first order of escalation, so we do not have any further escalation levels, so we just leave it as that. Then now we can go and assign or log in as an employee that is not in management and see what we get for the application process. So if we check our employee file here, we just look for, let's just pick another one at random. So we'll pick, for example, Robert Owino, number 64, is non-management staff. So let's log in as Robert Owino. Sorry. So we log in and we request leave. You can see the annual leave is for non-management, so the system will sort the annual leaves based on the management and the way you define it. So we'll go about adding employees to particular leave definitions. Once we are done with this, I'll show you how to do that. But once you have defined the annual leave, so all the rules apply. So we are going to just simulate similar kind of leave from 1st to 20th, same as Simon's. We're just going to put here annual leave. We'll put in an away contact. We'll put in somebody else, like we can select at random, maybe Wendy, to act as an acting officer. We submit the application. Then we now can log in and see. Before we log in, maybe let's send two and have two different employees approved by the two different administrators. So let's try also log in as Eddie. we try and make the same application. So Eddie also would like to take the same application from 1st to 20th annual leave. Put in a away contact. We can select maybe Felix to act as the acting officer. So once we have selected the users, sent the applications, we can even review the status of the applications by looking at our active leave. So we can see our pending applications, we can see our rejected applications, we can see our past leave. So in this case, you can see we have a pending application. While it's still pending, it's still possible to make some minor adjustments, especially on the period before it is approved by anybody. So the requesting user has that momentary freedom to do that. So let's now log in as the HR. So we log in as the HR manager. And we review our applications. You can see from our notifications, we have 2 applications. So we assume that we are going to review Eddie's application. So you see, because we've defined the workflows as either manager or CEO can take action. So you can see the options are readily available there. So we take action on this, we approve it as the HR admin. So you can see it is already approved. You can see it disappears from the applications list. That's because it is been approved. And if we log in as our CEO, you can see we only have Eddie's remaining. Why? Because it is either we've set the workflow for either user to approve. So in this case, our HR admin approved the previous one. So we are now just going to review and approve Eddie's approval as the CEO. So we will approve that. And if we log in as the HR admin, we can already see that the applications have been processed. So that is another way of going about this. So once the leave is approved, we can now have the HR or say a payroll user or whoever with the respective rights come and create the leave transactions. So in this case, we'll just create a new batch. Now we are logged in as somebody. You could assume the demo user is somebody in the accounts department, or it could even be the HR, depending on the size of your organization or your organization structure. It could also be the same as the HR manager. So we can come and call this leave pay or leave transactions for July 2020. We can put in some remarks and say maybe approved leave. And once we put in those entries, you can see we are able to add transactions, but there is nothing else we can do further from there. So we can add the people we approved our leave. So we approved Eddie, so we can type Eddie there. Eddie, we again select our leave transaction. So we have our leave allowance there, and we can put in the amount. So if it's a predefined amount or a fixed amount or whatever it is, you pay. If it's days, I mean, if it's got units, units and a rate, so you can put in your 20 days here and a rate, or depending on how you defined it. So we're just gonna use a fixed amount for this case. So when Eddie goes on leave, non-management staff are paid 3,500 for non-paid leave. Okay, let's make it a little bit more realistic. We can say maybe 14,000. Okay, so that just basically means that for when they go on leave, they get a lump sum pay of 14,000. So we can have that in our transactions. We can add it to the transactions. Then we can add the other employee who was, I cannot remember the name, but I think I can remember the number, Robert Owino. So Robert Owino, we can do the same. Maybe it could be different. Maybe Robert has a leave pay of 10,000. Hence, we give this flexibility because of such a scenario. So it might not necessarily follow the same rules as having it on an auto calculation basis. So we have that flexibility of doing that. So once we do that, we click done, and you can see we have our transactions here. But like we said, the escalation levels are not in the leave approval, they are in the processing salaries bit. So this, as much as the entries have been done, they need approval. As you can see, we are logged in with limited rights. So for escalation to take place here, we can actually print the batches and take them for authorization. So if there is your CFO or head of finance or general manager or managing director that needs to approve, we can print a physical copy, as well as they will be able to see this on their profile. So let's just generate the hard copy for record purposes. So you can see we have our entries there. As you can see, we made a careless mistake. We selected the wrong parameter for Robert Owino. We were supposed to select leave allowance, but we selected basic pay. These are common mistakes, which is why we have these batches approved on a secondary level. So you can see some of the benefits of having the batches. So here we are supposed to have selected our leave allowance. So we select our leave allowance. We said it was 10,000 for Robert. So we can select Robert, add him to the transactions, and we are done. So we now generate our hard copy for verification purposes, just as we have done. We have verified our data, so let us verify this before we notify the CEO or the finance manager. So there we have it. So now we have a hard copy as well as the software having the same electronic trail. We have a hard copy whereby we can see the leave transactions for July 2020 were created with the total amounts and the people that are being affected. So you can print this, have it signed and stamped. So it's been prepared by the HR admin or HR manager. It has been checked by, you can submit this to your head of finance or your general manager, and approval process as well. It can be approved by whether it's the CEO, the chairman, or whoever is in charge of that process. So once we have taken it through that process, the changes are still not effected on the payroll until somebody with the necessary rights or in the next level of escalation, in this case the CEO, has approved it. So we log in as the CEO. We'll go to our batches, and you can see right away, we can see that the batch was created by our HR user. We can view the transactions, and as you can see, we can produce the same report. But in this case, we are going now to post and close because we are the final authority. As the CEO or the general manager, we can now approve these transactions. Should there be any corrections to be made, they can also be adjusted. uh, then we can post and approve the batch. So now once you approve, you can see the system recognizes that there have been some changes into the system. So we go ahead and process those changes for them to reflect throughout the system. So processing is very quick. So if we evaluate the same person, or the people we have affected, let us just look for Robert. If we look at Robert's payslip, we will now see that it indicates a leave allowance of 10,000 which we had put. And if we log in as Robert as well, let us log in as Robert. We can view our changes and see that indeed our leave was approved and effected. So if we look at our leave, we can see that the non-management leave process was done and it was approved and effected. So that is how we would go about administering leave. Now we can probably have a look at, that is annual leave. We can probably now take a look at the other types of leave that do not follow all these calculation procedures but still go through the same application process. So we can just assume still under Robert that Robert apparently now wants to take a future leave. He knows that perhaps maybe his wife is about to give birth anytime, so he wants a paternity leave. So we can go to our applications. We can select a paternity leave and we can select the period. So maybe he's expecting his wife to be due on the second week of August. So for that second week, he can apply for 7 days or however number of days leave for that week. We can put in some remarks like expecting wife to give birth. We can put in some away contacts. We can select somebody to cover up. In that case, we selected Ronald and send the application. So as you can see, there's a validation rule there. I selected the start date to be 14th of August and the end date I selected July, which is a previous period. So the system is able to validate that. So let me select the correct range. So we selected from 14th to say 20th of August. We can now submit the application and you can see our application has been submitted. So you can see we also have a dashboard here that tells us the number of annual leave days we've taken and the days balance, but that does not apply to other types of leave. So let's just look at our active leave. We can see on our pending applications our paternity leave request. So now we can go and log in as the HR admin. Let's just close some of these. We can log in as the HR admin. And look and see that we have received a leave request from Robert requesting to take leave. So because we've set our workflows to either, So whoever takes action, it follows the same process. Should we have set it to escalation levels, it would have followed the same process as I described moments earlier. So let's approve that leave. So once the leave is approved, again, you can see that it becomes active on Robert's leave. You can see because the active leave picks leaves pertaining to that particular period. In our other leaves, we can see that the paternity leave is included in that list. So that is how we go about requesting other types of leave. And hopefully with this video you are able to understand how to use the leave module on our software to administer your leave transactions. So to wind up on our leave module, once you have performed all those activities, we can review the leave reports. Now the reports in this application are fully customizable, so I'm just going to load the default reports, and we can always review and customize whatever future reports that are required. So in this case, we want to look at our leave details and our leave status report so that we can analyze the work that we have just done. So as you can see here, we have the two reports. We have the leave details showing us uh, details of the leaves we have just performed. So we've given Simon, Robert, and Eddie leave. So you can see for Simon, we have July annual leave. It gives you a summary of the total days and the period from and to the period of the leave. We also have the paternity leave here and the annual leave for Robert. You can see we have all the details there. Then we have a leave master schedule, which shows us everybody's master schedule for leave, their days brought forward, the days taken, the balances. So we can see here all the changes that we have been effecting onto the system. So you can see for Robert and for uh, uh, Eddie, you can see our changes have been effected there, and for Simon as well. So that's basically how you would go about administering and reviewing leave on the application.